So here we can see, so learner you can ask how long do. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Tutelage, a guide to learner. Here this is Pipona, hoping that all of you are doing great. Everybody knows that we have discussed mostly class 11 economics content according to the syllabus. At first we were discussing some basic concepts of economics, after that few statistics chapters, and then it's a time to cover another some contents of economics. So today we are going to explain most important topic, that is business cycle and the concept of wealth and welfare. If you have missed my previous session, please go and check my description box and my first comment where the previous session link is already shared. So let's start my second phase of economic session. So now let's move. Here we can see some topics what we will discuss today. So first one is concept of welfare, the second one is the concept of wealth, and third one, which is most important topic in economics, that is a business cycle. Okay, so now let's start the discussion and go to the main slide. So here we can see the definition of wealth. So do you have any idea, learner, what do you mean by a wealth? In ordinary sense, wealth means money. But in economic sense, wealth refers to those goods which satisfy our wants. Satisfy our wants and which have money value. Clear? In this slide we can see also the definition. So wealth refers to the stock of assets which is a source of income. Clear? So we all know that Adam Smith defined the economics as a science of wealth, and that's why Adam Smith emphasized the production and the growth of the wealth as a subject matter of economics. And wealth basically measured the value of all the assets of earth owned by a person, community, and the company. So I think this is clear. What do you mean by a wealth? So now we are going to the next slide. So here we can see the first characteristics of wealth, that is utility. So utility is basically have the power to satisfy our wants. Clear? Now going to the second, that is the scarcity. So at first, do you have any idea, learner, what do you mean by a scarcity? So scarcity means there is a limited in supply. Okay, so limited in supply. So for example, air, sunlight, all are essential for our life and we can't live without them, but we don't consider them as a wealth because they are available in large scale. Those goods are limited in supply and have the money value which is treated as wealth, and it must be scarce resources because scarce resources satisfy our wants and desires, and those scarce resources have monetary value which is considered as wealth in economics. Clear? So now going to the third point, that is the transferability. So wealth should be transferable because the amount of wealth is transferred from one to another, from one generation to another generation. Okay, so now going to the fourth point, that is the exchange value. So we all know that wealth have monetary value, so that's why it's have the power of exchange value. So now going to the next slide. So here we can see the types of assets, but before going to the discussion we have to discuss what do you mean by a asset. Asset basically the property. Okay, so asset basically are the property owned by a person. Okay, so that means asset is a form of wealth also. So assets may be of two types. The first one is a reproducible assets and second one is the non-reproducible assets. So now going to the next slide where we can discuss where we can detail discussion on the reproducible assets and the non-reproducible assets. So now let's move. So here we can see the reproducible assets. So reproducible assets are man-made basically. So that means assets are made by man. Okay, but reproducible assets is the tangible assets with physical existence. Okay, it has the physical existence and what do you mean by a tangible assets? Tangible means you can touch it. Okay, and intangible means you can't touch it but you feel it. Okay, that is the basic differences between the tangible and intangible assets, but reproducible assets is under the tangible assets. Okay, so what is the reproducible assets? Reproducible assets are those assets which is tangible with physical existence. Clear? So fixed assets and the stocks of non-durable goods are the example of the reproducible assets. So fixed asset means all kinds of machine products, machinery, equipments are known as fixed assets, and the stock of consumer goods and stock of raw materials are known as the stocks of non-durable goods, and which is the example of the reproducible goods and which is produced by man also. Okay, so now going to the second type, that is non-reproducible. So non-reproducible assets consist of natural resources such as land, minerals, wealth, forest, and which is created by nature only, and that cannot be made by man. Okay, and non-reproducible assets is regarded as the free gifts of nature. So now going to the next slide. So here we can see the definition of welfare. So at first learner, we have to know what do you mean by a welfare. So welfare is basically a sense of satisfaction or happiness or a sense of well-being among the people. So that means the state of doing well, especially in respect of the good fortune, good happiness, prosperity, etc. Okay, so now let's move on the next slide. So here we can see some factors of welfare. Okay, so some factors such as environment, family relations, degree of freedom, consumption of goods and services may increase the welfare. Okay, so environment, family relation, consumption of goods and services, all are the factors of welfare, and those may increase the welfare, and some factors may decrease the welfare also, such as work, earthquake, political instability, etc. So environment, family relation, degrees of freedom, goods and services, political instability, insecurity, earthquake, all are the factors of welfare. Okay, so a good human life basically depends on all the factors like environment, family relation, degree of freedom, consumptions of goods and services, political insecurity, instability, work, etc. Okay, so now move on the next slide. So here we can see another set of factors of welfare. So some of the factors affecting welfare of the people of a country that can be expressed in monetary terms. Okay, that for example the national income, consumption, investment level, all can be expressed in monetary terms, okay, and it affects the welfare of the people of a country. And now going to the second, that is a sum of the factors affecting welfare of the people of a country cannot be expressed in monetary terms. For example, environment, social relations, law and order, etc. So some factors can be expressed in monetary terms and some factors that cannot be expressed in monetary terms, but both are the factors of welfare, okay. But human life, the good human life depends on both factors of welfare, so economic welfare and non-economic welfare. So the first set of factors are known as economic welfare because it can be expressed in monetary terms, and the second set of factors are known as non-economic terms because it cannot be expressed in monetary terms. So now move on the next slide. So here we can see the types of welfare. So welfare is of two types. The first one is economic welfare and second one is non-economic welfare, and we have already discussed what do you mean by economic welfare and non-economic welfare. So now go to the next slide. So here this is the definition of economic welfare. So economic welfare is a part of the social welfare also, and that can be directly or indirectly measured in monetary terms. I think this is clear. What do you mean by economic welfare? So now going to the next slide, where we can see the definition of the non-economic welfare. So non-economic welfare cannot be expressed in monetary terms. For example, the environment, social relations, laws and order cannot be expressed in monetary terms, okay. So now move on the next slide. So here we can see one of the most important concept of economics, that is business cycle. So business cycle is the natural rise and fall of economic growth that occurs over time, and it is a very useful tool for analyzing the actual economic condition, and it helps us to make better financial decision in an economy. So now let's start the detailed discussion on business cycle. So business cycle is basically the circular movement, okay. Business cycle is basically a circular movement of an economy as it moves from the expansion to contraction and back again. So it is the intervals of the expansion followed by a recession in economic activity, and it is measured by GDP, that is gross domestic product in a country. It has 4 phases and we will see in the next slide. So here we can see the 4 phases of business cycle. The first one is expansion, the second one is recession or contraction, third one is depression or thaw, and the fourth one is recovery, okay. So revival period, okay. So now go to the next slide where we can discuss the 4 phases of business cycle, okay. So let's go. So learner, you can ask how long do the business cycle last. So basically average length of business cycle is 5 to 1.5 years, okay. So now going to the discussion for 4 phases of business cycle. Sorry, I missed it. There are 5 phases of business cycle. The first one is the expansion or prosperity. The second one is peak, third one is recession, fourth one is depression, and fifth one is recovery or revival period. So let's start with the first stage, that is the expansion or the prosperity phase. So during this phase, increase in economic factors. So what is the economic factors? Economic factors means production, price products, etc. So in this stage, at increase in economic factors, so that means there is an increase in consumers confidence, so people spend more money and pay their debt comfortably. So in this stage, many companies or firms grow and they begin to hire more employee and offer overtime hours. Okay, so that's why expansion phase or prosperity phase helps to expand its business. Okay, so now going to the second phase, that is the peak. So peak phase comes after the expansion in the business cycle. So it is the right time to start to fall the economy. During this stage, prices are at their highest level. Okay, so at this time, company has increased their workload, employees are working many additional hours, so they feel overworked, and it obviously may affect the customer service and product quality. So that's why it is the time to start to fall the economy. Okay, so now going to the third phase, that is the recession phase. Okay, so before going to the discussion, I will show a diagram of business cycle. So now going to the next slide. So we can see the diagram of business cycle. The first phase, that is the expansion phase. In this stage, product price or the income increases. That's why people spend more money for purchasing the different types of good which satisfy their wants and desires. Okay, and firms or companies begin to hire more employees and offer overtime hours. Okay, so expansion phase helps to expand their business. So now going to the second stage, that is the peak. Okay, so at this stage, product price are at their highest level. So that's why we can say it is the right time to start to fall the economy. Okay, so and you can see it in this diagram also. So now going to the third stage, that is the contraction or recession. Okay, so contraction stage comes after the transition from the peak phase. Here, and company or firms can focus more on the quality and the customer service. So business has a fair amount of demand and it is in a good financial position also, but it is at a risk of needing additional income. Business is decreasing at this stage. In the contraction phase, business is decreasing because business owners focus on finding ways to improve their financial situation, such as how to save the money. Okay, so during this stage, stock exchanges crash and multiple bankruptcies of firms occur. Okay, so now going to the fourth phase of business cycle, that is the depression. Okay, so in this stage, drops in prices and output and the interest rate is very high. Okay, and this stage is also known as straw. Okay, so it follows the third one and ends before another the expansion phase, and in this stage prices of the product, supply and demand all are decreases. As a result, some employees are scheduled for fewer hours, so while others lost their jobs. Company owners are struggling to find out the additional customers and keep up their sales revenue. So in this stage, interest rate is high. So during this stage, this recovery stage, economy reaches to the lowest level of shrinking. It leads to the reversal of the process of business cycle. Company again starts hiring, but in limited numbers, and wages provided is less compared to their skills also. So now move on the next slide, where we can see the diagram of the business cycle. I think it will help you for clear explanation of business cycle. So now move on. So this is the third phase, that is the contraction or recession of the business cycle, and now going to the fourth phase, that is in this situation, supply and demand, price of the product, all are decreases, and now going to the recovery phase. This stage is known as basically recovery or revival period, and in this stage consumers increases their consumption rates, demand for product increases, demand increases, consumption also increases, bankers starts utilizing their cash balances by decreasing lending rate and increasing investment. Clear? So after, as a result, in this stage employment increases. That means economy again enters into the expansion phase. I think this is clear, and you can see it in this diagram also. So the business cycle gets completed. I think this is clear to everyone. So we are done for the today's session. I will come with a new session very soon. Till then, stay tuned. Please do like, share, comment, and do more subscribe to my channel. Happy learning. Thank you.